Thanks for joining today's webinar, Linens, Laundry, and Leads, Navigating Digital Marketing in a Competitive Space. We are super excited to have you all here today. My name is Brittany Colby, and I'm the Senior Marketing Manager here at Linen Master and Infinite Laundry, and I'll be your host and moderator today. Before we get started, I do have a few housekeeping items to cover. So to provide you with the best listening experience, all attendees are on mute. However, you may ask questions using the Q&A function. This meeting will also be recorded, but we encourage you to stay the full length of the webinar as we have some really exciting content we'll cover today, and then we'll answer audience questions at the end of the webinar. So let's go ahead and introduce our speaker today. Steve Cooker is a seasoned marketing professional with extensive experience in digital marketing within the commercial laundry industry. Steve is skilled in crafting social media campaigns, enhancing brand awareness, lead generation, and driving sales and customer acquisition strategies. In his day-to-day, Steve leverages his experience to help Infinite Laundry clients attract and retain customers. And he is currently residing in Boynton Beach, Florida with his wife and 2 children. So with that, Steve, the stage is all yours.
Thank you, Brittany, and thank you everybody for joining today and spending some time with me. Yes, this is something that I'm passionate about. Lots of things that we're going to touch on in marketing, but I really like the title to this one. And really what I'd like to get into is a few important objectives, right? These are the things that I'd like to do in our time here today. I want to learn how to leverage digital marketing to position your brand above the competition, to both focus on brand awareness and lead gen, and also take a dive into how those are connected together. We're going to be taking a look at different strategies that we use to help generate new leads, also to retain existing customers. We're going to go into getting a further understanding of how the right combination of marketing tools work together. And that's going to be a big part of this. We're going to talk about a lot of the different tools we use, but we're also going to focus on how they're connected and why they're important in working together for a holistic approach. We're also going to take a look at some design and video and how to incorporate that into everything we're doing as well. And like always, in all of these presentations, if you've ever been on one with me, my main objective is for you to walk away with something of value and something that you can implement quickly. So if I can see some short wins while we're going through this and navigating some of these different services, I'll give some advice on that as well, and something that you can just go and start doing right away and improve upon in your business. So when we're talking about marketing, right, this is something that we talk about in marketing often. Marketing is all about sending the right message to the right audience at the right time. The core of everything we do in marketing is around this objective here. And it's important that we get all 3 of those steps right. You know, you have to be able to have the right message, because if you have the right audience in the right time and you say the wrong thing, that's not going to get you anywhere, and vice versa through all the different options there. But we're going to be diving into this as well as we dive into all the different services and things that we do for marketing, all the different tools, right? But before we get into the tools, there's some kind of must-haves for a digital presence. This is a good a list of things that really make an essential foundation for you to be able to convert leads online and to be able to make sure to reach the right audience with the right message at the right time. So the centerpiece of all of this is going to be your website, right? Your website is going to be the engine for conversions. It's going to be where you're able to install certain tracking codes for remarketing ads. It's where you put your SEO content. It's where you bring people to push them further down the marketing funnel, bring them back into the website once they leave, have them convert once they're on there. It's really the centerpiece of all this, the glue that holds it all together. And we're going to dive into all the different services and how they connect to the website as well. A big one, though, is, the SEO, the search results, right? Both organic SEO and then also pay-per-click is another type of search result. And so we're going to be talking about the different things we can do on pay-per-click, not just on the search side, but also display, how we work video into that, remarketing campaigns. And we're going to do a little bit deeper dive into reviews, where those are important to be housed, how to get more of them, and how they can help with getting more leads at a cheaper rate. Also, social media presence. It's important to have a social media presence. People are going on the internet to look at all the search engines, right? But they're also going on social media, and they're used to seeing brands online at this point. So it's kind of imperative to have your brand online, but not only just to have it there, but to control the messaging and to have particular messaging for social media. And also a glimpse of the culture. That's really a good place to do that in social media. You can do that in some other avenues as well, but we'll talk about how that's imperative on the social media side. And then again, video content. We'll talk about how video is king and why all these things are just kind of must-haves. You can't really have a strong foundation without having a little bit of all of this, in my opinion. So all of this is going to be taking a look at something that we call AIDA, attention, interest, decision, action, plus retention. And so what we're doing here in marketing is we're trying to figure out where you are in this funnel. And a lot of times we're thinking of search, right? And that's going to be the interest section here. That's where someone's interested in something. They're going to look to solve a problem they have. But sometimes we also need to reach the attention stage above that. Attention is going to be more finding people that are the right audience, but they might not be aware of the problem that you're able to solve with your business and your services and your offerings. So where someone is in this stage dictates the type of content that we want to send to them, right? As you're going past the interest stage and you're getting into the decision, there's some more nurturing type of marketing that happens, messaging that strengthens what you're already having going out there in your conversations that you were having during the interest phase to help reinforce that, to hopefully bring them closer to action, which is where we're going to bring someone on and they're going to convert as a lead and then possibly come in and close as a sale. And then retention, right? Keeping the customer is part of marketing as well. What can we do to focus on retention, not just finding new customers, but keeping new customers? And how do all of these things play together? And how do these different tools that we use enter these different stages of the funnel? So I wanted to show this funnel so that everyone's aware of it, because as we're going through these different stages or these different tools within marketing, I'm going to be referencing how they can do different parts of these stages as well. And so we'll be working down the attention, interest, decision, action, and retention levels. I'm a visual learner, so I like to include this. This is kind of a map of how all of the different types of advertising things can work together, right? It's one thing to be able to talk about them and how they're all connected, but if you can follow along with all of these arrows, there's some meaning behind them. And so you can see on the left, we have prospect, and these are all the different base categories of advertising that someone could have their first exposure to your brand with. Signage, vehicle wraps. We'll talk about some things we can do to enhance those, but I never want to leave those out. That is a roaming billboard that a lot, if you have trucks going out on routes and you can have your advertising, your branding on there, that is huge because people see it everywhere. Often we'll, how did you hear about us? Well, we saw your truck, right? That's a big deal. That's carried brands for decades in this industry. And it's still important. And we'll talk about how we can tie that into your digital campaigns as well to help send people to the website and also to some of these other pathways. And what we're trying to do here with all these pathways, by the way, is get touch points. There's a stat that I've seen that says, and I always get the number, it's either 52 or 54, but it's a number in the low 50s, is the amount of average times that a business-to-business consumer is offered before they take an action and buy. So they're offered something many, many times with all of these touch points. That could be something as simple as seeing the truck go by. That's a brand splash, essentially. But also you have social media content, Facebook ads, that's a little bit different than content. Content would be the actual post, but then Facebook ads you can run through the platform, LinkedIn ads, print ads, word of mouth, which is huge. That's an entry point as well. Search engines, and both through the paid and the SEO content, directory listings, reviews, all of these different places can get you there. Now, the reviews are usually attached to the directory listings, so you don't go directly to the website from there. But if you follow these arrows, you can see how they all lead to the website. And then some of them actually go back and forth. That's what the little dotted arrows are. So you can see the video remarketing ads at the top and the image remarketing ads, the Facebook ads, those actually send back and forth. So people that land on your website then are brought back to your website through those mediums. But all of it is still trying to get you to the website. That's why I was saying the website's the foundation. And then what are we trying to do once we're on the website? That's the next big part of the puzzle, right? We do a lot on trying to get those top level funnel stages through all of this plethora of marketing tools over to the website. But then the website has a job to do as well, and that's to convert. And so it's important that we don't only have a website, but we have a website that had this whole goal in mind from the beginning, that is built thinking of conversions and has the correct content. Because what happens when you don't is you end up with a high bounce rate. And so you can start to invest in all of these services. And we see this often where people will try, I've tried this, I've tried that, I've tried a lot of these things on the left side, but it didn't seem to work for me. And often we'll find that the website might be the culprit. And so when you can diagnose that from the beginning, you can take a look at the holistic approach that I'm talking about and think of the website as a part of it and not as a separate piece. Like, okay, we just get people to the website and then it's done. No, this is a part of the whole system because you want the message to carry through. If someone's seeing particular messaging and finding solutions to problems throughout your advertising, we want to expand upon that once they get to the website. We want to show how that problem can be solved, and we want to give an easy pathway to do it. And usually that's in the form of booked appointments, form fills, inbound calls, and that generates to sales, and then they have the opportunity to close, and that's how we have our new customers. So this is a really nice visual for me, and I want to keep this in mind as we start looking at some of these services on a more granular level individually. As I was talking about the website as the central hub, we want it to not only be thought of for conversions, right? But we also want to make sure that it has the brand represented properly. You want to make sure that this is something that you're proud of, that the branding is in line with what's out in the advertisements. You also want to think of optimizing it from a technical perspective. There's things on the SEO side that we'll lean into a little bit more, but things like page load speed and just having it built in a platform that is SEO friendly. That's another thing we'll notice sometimes is that there's websites that were built on platforms, maybe 10, 15 years ago, someone built a website and they used a kind of like a website building tool to do it. And it's a good looking website. It's functional, but it's lacking in some of the tools that you would need to truly optimize your page to rank on Google organically. And so those are the type of things that are important to think of when you're thinking about your online presence. How do you control the platform that you're going to be on from the beginning to make sure you have the opportunity to be versatile in what you're going to do with your marketing strategy going forward? All of this is not needed to be determined in the initial stage of building a website. It's more important that you're building a website that allows the versatility in changing things and has all of the different levers you'd like to pull available. And you build it from the foundation with that in mind, then you're not limited down the road and have to find yourself doing some kind of big expensive rebuild. So let's dive into some of the actual services. And this is where we can kind of have a little bit of fun and maybe come up with some good examples of things that I've seen that work really well. So pay-per-click marketing. I like to start here because, this is our heavyweight. This is our sprinter, right? This is the big flashy service where the majority of the lead generation is going to be derived from. The reason that is that funnel we were looking at on the interest stage. That's the most expensive. That's one of the most expensive stages. Those are people that are showing buyer intent, right? When you're interested, you're an intended buyer. So people are willing to pay a premium to find people that have already raised their hand and said, hey, I'm looking for linen rental service near me. Or, that's an obvious one. There's thousands of different tens of thousands of different search phrases and keywords that can lead to a conversion that equals a new client for a linen rental service or just a commercial laundry service in general. But the point of that is that since Google is since it's such a premier stage, people are willing to not only pay for it, they're willing to bid on it. And that's what you end up having here is a bidding system where people are able to bid on keywords at that very, very imperative stage of the marketing funnel that we were looking at. So what we can do here is we can take a look at all the different things that people search to get there, right? But we can also take a look at other things that people use to show intent and problem solving. Maybe it's not as simple as linen rental service near me. Maybe they're having problems with their other provider, right? And they're looking for solutions to that. There's a national provider that they've had that keeps sending orders wrong or damaged, and they look for a solution to that problem. Well, having the foresight to think, hey, I'd like to have some advertising that gets in front of people when they have that problem. This is somewhere where you can do stuff like that. And then there's also things that happen within the pay-per-click advertising that are in a similar guise, but a little bit different, such as competitor campaigns. We've seen that often competitors will be running campaigns against the other brand names in their market. And now Google gives some preferential treatment if that's happening to you and you want to play defense. They give you a discounted rate. They'd like to protect the user experience and make sure that if someone's searching for your brand by name, that you show up first, but they want you to pay a little bit to make sure that happens. And if you're paying nothing, then the competition can easily come in and bid for your actual name, and vice versa. You can do that as well, and try to show up in some places that you think it's worth showing up for. So there's some interesting things that can be done with PPC. And then not just, we're talking about audiences right now and search intent, but then the content, the messaging as well, getting in front of the group of competitors that you have and quickly getting your messaging to align with what makes your brand different, what makes your service different, what makes you stand out in your market, the type of things you're probably saying in sales conversations already, making sure that that's in your ad copy so that when you're paying a premium to show up here, you have the messaging in tune, right? And this kind of forces that to happen because, it's one thing to work on your messaging when it's an idea you'd like to have and you're working on some flyers and things like that. But when you start paying in this bidding system, it's imperative that you have the messaging correct because you're going to start focusing on, dollars in, dollars out. What are we converting? And that's a big part of the equation, not just the audiences and what are they searching to get there, but then what are we saying to them once they see you? So this is all a great, great vehicle to have. This is a great weapon to have, but it's not the only part of PPC advertising. There's another big part of it as well, and that's the display and remarketing advertising. So this is the part I think many people are familiar with for all kinds of things. You go online and you look for a product or a service, and then you start seeing ads from that exact product or service start to follow you around. What's happening on that is if you refer back to that visual map, those are the dotted lines. Those are some ads that are following you around because you visited the website or you interacted with a brand. It installs some cookies onto your device, and then whatever platforms you might have, which share that information with other devices that you use. And when you go onto the internet, after that, you start to be delivered some of these ads. So that's an important thing to do as well. The reason it's so important is because remember those touch points that I talked about? This is where a lot of them come from. So if somebody is going and they're, looking at to solve a problem, we'll go back to, the national brand is not sending the right product and it's damaged and they're upset about it. And they go looking and they like, yeah, but I'm in contract for a long time. I don't know. That's cool. I'm happy to see that there is another option out there, but I can't do anything about it. We don't want to waste the money that was just spent on that expensive click. It's not expensive, but expensive in comparison to display. We don't want to, not really get the benefit of that full amount we just paid for the first click. So what this does is now we start getting to some brand touches, but people come back after these because right message, right audience, right time. Well, we had the right audience, we had the right message, the timing wasn't right. So if we can cheaply and often and effectively put these same messages in front of that same user over and over again at a frequency cap that's preferable. We don't ever want to annoy people with stuff like this, but every couple of days is usually a good exposure rate for the brand. That keeps you top of mind because it's going to become time at some point, and it's very likely that the time is when one of these ads is delivered. And they'll click on that ad and they'll come back to the website. And these ads typically, like I said, pennies on the dollar in comparison to the more expensive ones. And so what you're doing is if you can get someone to come back off of one of these ads, you bring down the total cost of your conversions, which brings down the total cost of your customer acquisition. So you can see how this can be a very powerful thing. And this can tie into other things as well, right? So we have all these different ways to keep people coming back to your website, but there's other ways to get them there to start with. And this can be a way to get them back after they do that as well, such as SEO, right? So search engine optimization, very similar to what we were just talking about with PPC. And I touched on it a little bit in the beginning with the foundation of the website building portion that I was talking about. That's where you can start to really get ready for SEO. But once you're ready, then what do? You're doing some technical things in the background, right? You're making sure that you're following along with Google's best practices. And as those best practices change often, that you're going and making sure that you're constantly in line with what they want so that you're rewarded with higher search results. But just like those PPC ads, sometimes people might come through one of these more obscure pathways that are usually put together for SEO because you're writing content that solves particular problems, right? And someone comes on and they land on that more, maybe they see you're searching something and they see some ads, but then they see an SEO page underneath that's very relevant to the problem they were searching for. They could click on that and then get long form content, which expands upon it, gives them a better understanding of the solution you're presenting to them. But that also puts you right into the same marketing funnel. So now the remarketing ads can start following around, bringing people back so that by combining the two, now your SEO efforts are being further enhanced by your PPC efforts. You're getting more bang for your buck off of your SEO by having your PPC connect to it and drive traffic back. So now you're getting more conversions off your SEO. And there's other things you can do to help the other way, right? Like I said, a lot of this is how do these services work together, right? So on the other side, how can PPC help SEO? One of the things you're doing on SEO is keyword analysis and trying to determine how people are searching the internet and how they're coming to the conclusion that they should go to your website or a competitor's website, and writing the particular content, not just off of solving those problems, but also thinking of the keywords that are being searched most often and seeing which ones convert. And when you do it on SEO, that takes a long time. When you have the PPC data at your fingertips because you've been in that bidding system, you quickly get to see the words that are converting. You quickly get to see the phrases that are converting and the pathways that people are getting there. And you're doing thousands and thousands of different options and the cream rises to the top. You can use that as kind of a kickstart to knowing the type of stuff that ranks on SEO. And then what happens is you can start to create SEO content going after that same traffic. And then in tune, if you can get your SEO over time to rank high enough, you could reduce your PPC spend on that particular category. Again, saving you money that was being spent on expensive ad spend budget and further putting it into long-term SEO that's kind of like owned property as opposed to the rented property that PPC ad was. And so these are two things that really just work well together. And we can tie it further into a bigger holistic ecosystem when we look at social media mixing into it as well. Now, there's some things we can do different on social media, and now we start to leave the realm of lead generation exclusively because people on social media, they're on social media looking to see people. And they are happy to see companies, but they usually like to see what the people are doing at those companies. And if you start putting a lot of salesy jargon into the social media, it's probably not the best platform to convert. Yeah, maybe you can get some conversions here or there, but it'd be much better to just get them through the other type of things we were talking about where they're effective and predictable and you can replicate it. But social media can enhance that. What can happen is you can do a couple of things. You can start to personalize the brand a bit so that as people are getting whatever amount of that average of 50 or so touch points is part of their pathway, right? We can break up the monotony of the tailored things, the ads, the things that are following them around that are obviously ads, and you mix in some of this personalized branded material, and it helps to give a full picture, right? They start to see the culture, they start to get an idea of who they might be working with, and it just kind of softens the entire approach. Now, there is some lead gen aspect to this. The same way those display ads can help, there are ways to reach through social media to further cast your net for remarketing ads. So they compete with each other. Some of the social media platforms offer a similar product, partnered with their own thousands of websites and apps and news sources and all of that. So it's usually best to do your remarketing on a couple of different places, because that way you can cast your net further. And then there is one aspect that's kind of a crossover that's like PPC social media crossover. That's LinkedIn, where, yes, we're going to treat it like social media, but we can also treat it like PPC, and we can do some of that very top level attention advertising, where this is someone that's not even interested, right? But we can target based off of company name, job title. And so if you have, big clients that have their companies listed on LinkedIn, that's a great place to present a problem that they might not know that they have, that you know that they need to have solved. Because you can find that correct audience, it's the right audience, you have the right message. There is no right time yet for this. So you need to make the time, which is when they're in a place where you know they are, that you can get their attention. And so you can get their attention on LinkedIn. Bring them over to your website, preferably on an SEO optimized landing page, and then preferably with PPC remarketing ads attached to it. And now this person just had the experience of being exposed to a brand they didn't know, having it solve a problem they didn't know they have. They see that there's value from this organization, certainly, because, hey, now I didn't even see things like that. They're curious. They've interacted with your brand, and now they're in your marketing funnel. When before, everything we were talking about before was kind of starting at the interest point, this is a good way to start at the attention point and create more interest, create more demand. So if you're really going aggressively in a market and you want to generate demand and not just capture what's out there, that's a good way to do it. So all of this, there's another section that I think is pretty important, and that's your directory listings. That's where you have your reviews housed. And we have a whole bunch of them listed here, right? But look in the center there, the giant planet, that's Google, right? Google, in the past 2 years or so, has really done a good job wiping out all of those other things you see underneath, particularly Yelp and Angie's List, where people are trusting those brands less and less for the reviews. Consumers are leaving them less often. And Google's noticed that those companies had done so good with their SEO that the majority of searches where companies like yours should be showing up were having Yelp show up and having Angie's List show up. And it was just kind of a bad user experience. So they decided that, hey, why don't we just do what they're doing? There's essentially housing reviews and vetting them in a minimal way, and we can create our own landscape for that. They own the Google search, and so often when you're doing a Google search on desktop, you'll see it show up on the top right. On mobile, sometimes it'll show up immediately under the search, and that's that section that has, a link to call, a link to your website, and your reviews with some pictures right there, maybe the store hours, address. But the reason it's super important is because it's sitting right there on those Google searches. So when someone's searching and seeing your ads or seeing your SEO content, if they're in a geographical territory where you're the predominant provider, or if they're searching something, by brand name, it's very likely that your Google My Business listing will show up right there, and your reviews are going to sit right next to it. So the user's going to notice that. If you have consistent reviews and they're good, you're going to see that reflected in how often people click your ads, which is going to equal a lower cost per click, and again, a lower cost per acquisition in the end of things. Also, people are more likely to click on your SEO content. Imagine if you had a bunch of competitors bidding high for the PPC content, and you had the number one SEO right there, or number one SEO result, and the user was on the edge of clicking on all those ads, but your Google My Business was sitting right there with 5-star review from 2 days ago. Someone mentioned my name, another 5-star review from 2 weeks ago, and overall, 4.8 rating with 75 plus reviews. They might take a look and say, yeah, they might skip the ads and say, I'm more likely to even click this SEO result. It's just, I don't know, it looks like they're trustable. That's what's called social proof. It's the equivalent of, off the internet asking like, hey, what do you know about this guy? Like, what do you know about this company? Have you worked with them? It's the modern equivalent of that. It's getting some kind of validation that someone similar has worked with them and had positive results. And that's usually the thing that takes someone from that interest stage into the decision stage. It's that final cherry on top at the end there. And so it's also extremely important for that reason. And so we spend a lot of time doing this service as well, because it enhances all the other things that we do. And then a quick one, if people have been on these before or seen any of my other presentations or spoken with me in any sense, it's likely you've heard this one, but in case you haven't, this is a very easy thing to take home and use right away to enhance your Google reviews. We like to help our clients with getting a very nice visual, either like a small postcard or a small credit card size handout laminate type of thing, or an actual card, and put a QR code on it that links directly to the Google reviews to be left, not to see them, but so you don't have to click anything. And what happens is lots of people have tried incentivizing their drivers who go out to go ask for reviews, and they'll often get a commitment to that. But getting the actual review is a challenge, because that requires someone to remember to do it and to be nice enough to do it later. So we tend to see a lot of success in asking the drivers or incentivizing them to go ask for the reviews. And then when your customer says, yeah, I'll leave a review, the driver can say, oh, great, and pull the card out and say, can you do it right now? And they're not going to say no to that. And that creates a system that keeps those reviews coming in consistently. And it's really easy and doesn't cost anything except a small design and printing a few postcards and laminating them, adding it into your processes there. So that's something that's super effective. And I've always really commended the companies that I've seen work that into a long-term process and seen the reviews consistently grow and stack over time. You can see it reflect in the other metrics as well when you kind of do a analysis side by side of what type of changes have happened since we made those changes. And I just mentioned the QR codes, right? And that's what I wanted to kind of segue into this. What we did right there was we took a print piece, right? A laminated postcard, and we added a QR code to connect it to the digital world. And that's huge, right? And these QR codes, they've been around for a long time now. And surprisingly to some, I think these rolled out maybe 10, 12 years before COVID, and nobody used them because you had to download an app, right? You had to use the special app to scan the QR code. They looked weird. They look funky. They don't have an explanation. And then you don't really know what's going to happen. It usually would then ask you to click another thing, to click on a URL or download a PDF. And they were kind of not user-friendly. They weren't adopted by the public. But COVID kind of forced that back into play when nobody could get their menus at restaurants anymore. This became the way we get our menus. And so many people were downloading the QR code apps that the operating systems for both Android and Apple decided to build it into their cameras so that they don't have to go and download the app. And now all of a sudden, everyone has quick access to scan QR codes, and it became commonplace. So these weren't built for menus originally. Like the idea of QR codes was to do the same type of marketing thing that we're talking about originally, but just couldn't get it to be adopted. But now that's not the case. Now people see a QR code and they know to scan it. I was talking to someone the other day. They were impressed with being able to zoom in on a QR code at a basketball game from really, really far out and have it actually load. And You'll see this more and more on the backs of seats, on pamphlets, on windows. You'll see them if you're getting an Uber. Like, I see QR codes everywhere now, and it's tying things back in. And so think what I was saying before about your truck being this roaming billboard. You add a QR code to it, and now your truck, if that QR code lands on your website and you have PPC remarketing going, now your roaming billboard has remarketing ads attached to it, right? I mean, that's a big thing. And your printed stuff as well. You can have flyers, such as like a particular service or segment of your offerings that you're trying to push. And you could have a particular SEO landing page that really expands upon the bullet points on that slick sheet or handout, has a QR code to land on it. And now what you've done is you've taken someone that was semi-interested, you've got them to interact a little bit more, and you're pushing them further down that funnel, and you're bringing in that holistic approach. You've got the remarketing ads, you've used a little SEO, and you're tying it into your printed flyers. And so I hope that you're seeing how this all kind of works together. We talk about all these different things, PPC, SEO, social, print ads. Which one should I do? And it's usually not a case of which one should I do. It's a matter of which combination should I do and why? What audience am I trying to reach? What message am I trying to give? When should I give it? Right? All right message, right audience, right time is all solved by using this combination of services in a way that makes sense just for you. So again, tying it all together, right? Video content. I just want to layer this in. Video content, video's king, right? It's what brings your brand to life. Not only is it more interesting for the users, it's getting cheaper and cheaper to produce. Technology keeps making it more affordable, which makes it more expected by the user, as even smaller brands, small businesses, local eateries are putting video content out constantly. The user's starting to expect it from your brand. And so having video layered in it's a big deal. And not only that, the platforms themselves have it baked into their algorithm. They know that they need to do two things. They need to collect money from advertisers, right? They also need to protect their user experience so that they still have that audience to sell to advertisers. And so part of protecting that user experience is giving the users exactly what they want, which is people on social media, and even better, videos with people on social media, videos on your website, adding some motion to your website, right? A user goes on, they're used to static banners, they see a little video movement. Oh, you got some more attention. You've got some more people in your audience. You've got a better shot at moving them down that marketing funnel that we're talking about. So this is really imperative to just have video layered into whatever you're doing in as many ways as you possibly can. We like to do all kinds of different videos. A big thing that we like to do is find a way to get these videos to run as remarketing ads on local television. That's huge. And we've seen things, it's certainly possible to have your brand hitting somebody who has visited your website while they're watching a major news site or primetime television, even major sporting events. We've seen this happen. And what's great is that the user who's having that experience and seeing your brand, they don't know that this is only going to a remarketing audience. This is kind of new stuff that's happened in the past couple of years. So being able to do that and combine your remarketing with video to really give more impact and some really high value touch points. And you'd be surprised at how cheap that is. That falls in the category of pennies on the dollar compared to the search intent ads. Because again, it's another brand splash. You're trying to bring someone back, but very, very powerful stuff. And then what types of videos, right? You can do a TV commercial, 30-second commercial like I'm talking about, 15-second quick brand splash, 6-second non-skippable brand splashes. Those are very important in digital content, but also long-form videos like company overviews, why work for us, what we do. And the one that I like a lot is a day in the life of, going out and seeing a day in the life of the RSRs. People really like to see that since that's usually who they interact with the most, and just kind of get an idea of what that guy they see every now and then does when he's not dropping something off and, asking to sign an inventory sheet. So this is just, Again, imperative to get video into all things and really, really helps out. Also, design in general, right? You want to have a professional looking design carry across everything that it touches, not just your website, not just these online ads. And yes, we can tie them back to digital. And so we want it to look the same, right? We want it to look well branded. We want it to look branded in a very nice light. We want to have crisp branding. We want to have things stay the same and uniform. And there's just all kinds of different things you can do here. I talked a little bit about truck wraps and sales materials, leave behinds, postcards, lots of things you can do. Anything you can brand, I think, is a good thing to do. If you can brand your invoices, if you can brand any stationery that goes out, you want to be able to keep that brand on everything that your customer touches that has something to do with your company. So just lots of things that you can do here. Booth designs, just really, really getting everything that you can possibly do out there. Catalogs are big, right? Both digital and print, digital becoming more important, but having one that matches, and also having a printed catalog that has QR codes and things that can tie back into the website so you can really get the most bang off of your buck if you're going to invest in a printed catalog. So tying it all together, I just want to go back to that, the visual of the how everything comes to the website, and really just hone back in on right message, right audience, right time, and then thinking of it through that marketing funnel, right? Where are they in that marketing funnel helps you determine both what's the right message, what's the right audience, and what's the right time, which then helps you determine which of these tools need to be activated at this moment to push them to the next stage of this funnel until they become a new customer. And then how do we use all of these things the same way to target our existing customers to make sure that they understand the messaging that we want to make sure that they stay with us, so that if they go searching somewhere else, they're also getting some kind of legacy branding put in front of them to help stop from leaving, as well as the defensive PPC ads, things like that you can do to help on the retention side of things. So that's kind of how I'd like to bring it all together. I'd like to just thank you all for your time in doing this, and really appreciate everybody that's out here taking their time to learn a little bit. And I hope you have some questions. I'm happy to dive into questions and answer anything that anyone might be thinking about.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Steve, for that insightful presentation and sharing all about digital marketing for commercial laundries. That was really great. We did have a few questions that came in both before the webinar and during. We can kind of kick off with those. So the first question is actually about email marketing. So they asked, when sending marketing emails to your customer or prospect base, how do you prevent it from being recognized as spam and prevent your own company email from being flagged and shut down?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there's a couple things to that. So let's start with the easiest would be is, how are you sending it, right? If you're going to go and try to send emails manually in bulk, you're probably going to get flagged. We use third-party tools that help solve that problem. Some of them will send emails in batches, and they have different ways of doing it technically. But the key is using a third-party tool. There's lots of different ones out there. You'll hear people use MailChimp, Constant Contact, ActiveCampaign. There's a whole bunch of different tools. But they're essentially helping to solve that problem. But then you also have to know how to use something like that as well. And you got to think of two sides to this coin. One is what's in the email, right? You got to be careful to have good text to image ratios. So if you start dumping in a lot of attachments, links, and images, and you don't have it well balanced with the text side of things, that's possibly going to trip you up. You also want to make sure to have the proper opt-in and opt-out features. You want to have an opt-out thing on your actual email so that users have the ability to unsubscribe if they'd like. If you don't have that, that's more likely to get flagged. And then you also want to think of, where did your list come from? Like, if it's a list full of people you've never talked to and you just bought it somewhere, it's probably going to get a lot of bounces on the first send. And you might get flagged right away from doing that. So it's really a matter of, where did this stuff come from? If you have real opted in lists, you're not going to have that problem. That's not always the case. Sometimes I see people have a mixed bag, right? And so the next stage of that is list management and working on that list as you send it. So every time you send, you want to take a look at your bounce rate and your unsubscribes, and make sure to be scrubbing out the people that are bouncing, so that, because that bounce rate is looked at to see how threatening your email is. And then also realize that, if you're sending to people in an industry, maybe you're on the healthcare side of things, and when you send it, the majority of your prospects are in Outlook, then know that, they're going to see it with images removed unless they download the images, and keeping things like that in mind. Like, again, right audience, right message, right time. You can get very, very granular, nitty gritty with how you're going to approach that particular audience if you know them intimately like that. That's
Definitely.
probably more to that, but yeah, there's a start.
Great answer. Another person asked how to reach a very targeted audience. I know we kind of touched on this a little bit, but maybe do you want to give a recap?
Sure, yeah. And I mean, so one of the challenges in audience creation is there's limitations on the size, right? Technically, the technology, in my opinion, is out there that you could probably target down to the individual level and send them an ad, but that's not opened up to be able to use like that. And so the platforms put minimum thresholds. They're all different, but 1,000's usually a typical one. Like, if you don't have more than 1,000 people on the list, then the ad won't deliver. And so sometimes when you're going to a very targeted list, right, you're trying to get a very niche specific audience, you might need to kind of add some filler in there, right? So say you have an audience of 200 people that's pretty targeted, and I definitely want to hit these 200 people, but the platform you're on won't allow you to send less than 1,000. Well, you can find someone that you're okay seeing that ad. They're maybe not your exact prospect, but they're definitely, something that kind of makes sense for them to see it, and add that into the actual audience. And you can expect that your conversion rates against your impression numbers are kind of going to be deflated a lot because of that. But you can then skip to the next steps and start monitoring your your actual cost per lead. And if your cost per lead isn't affected, then you've just succeeded in overcoming that challenge. Other things you can do is start to think of other ways to reach them outside of just an advertising paid audience. SEO can be very powerful for that. If you have a product or a service that is very obscure and not a lot of people talk about it, and you can start to be the authoritative source and give the educational content to the users looking for it, then when people go searching the internet trying to find that, they're going to land on your website to do that. And that very limited audience, it's limited content for a reason. There's a limited audience to go with it. And so just being mindful of that, and maybe you have the only SEO content relevant to that very small audience. And so you can expect they will find their way to you.
Absolutely. Okay, great. I have another question. I have a limited budget. Where would you recommend I spend it and my time?
Well, we have limited budget, so I guess my question to that would be, what's the budget? And assuming it's, I don't know, let's say we have something reasonable and we're looking at, I can only do a little bit of this. I kind of rephrase the question into that. It depends what your objective is. I'd say if it's lead gen is your objective, then just go right for a heavy hitter like PPC, something where you're going to know you're going to get some leads. Or, sometimes there's, like directory services. We have a product and we have solves that problem, where it's like, I don't really have any time to focus on any of this, and I just want to pay for a lead. And you can find like a pay per lead directory service like that. The other thing is your time. You know, if you're trying to measure your time and your budget, sometimes you got to give on one. And so would it make sense to open up budget to save your time a little bit, and maybe, or vice versa, right? Bring down your budget and use your time and do it exclusively. Those are the type of decisions I would be trying to make. And then I'd be taking a look at what's most important. And if it's lead gen, I'm going to look at PPC first and work my way down kind of in the order we did this presentation in. And if it's brand awareness and I'm not really worried about leads and I just want my market to know that I do X or I'm about Y, then it would probably be the reverse. And we're going to think of your directories, your reviews, and then your social media, SEO, all the way back to PPC. So I'd kind of go reverse order depending on main objective.
Great. Awesome. Okay, so this last question kind of ties into that a little bit. So David, what is your number one prospecting tool that leads to a prospect, sale, or conversion?
The number one that's going to be pay-per-click advertising. I mean, that's where it's built to do that. All the other things are built to do multiple things and that. And the reason it's pay to play is because it's the most effective and most efficient. So that would certainly be where I would say is the most effective for converting prospects. And then again, though, not now that I say that, at the very end when I say converting prospects, remember what I said about your website. So maybe let me pull back on my answer a little bit and say, given your website is ready to convert, then that would be the answer to that. If your website's not ready to convert, then your website's going to be the first place to take a look at investing.
Definitely. Awesome. Well, I believe that's all the questions that we had today. So thanks again, Steve, for your time today. And thanks everyone for joining us. We hope you found it really valuable, and we'll see everybody soon.